This is the Double Tap Show. We love our guns because we love freedom. What a beautiful idea that is. Joining me in the studio today is the one and only call-in ambulance guy, Mel.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
I am Nephi Khaliki, and again, this is the Double Tap Show. We are going to be on air every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. If you are one of nearly 200,000 concealed carriers in Nevada, this show is for you. If you're exploring the idea of carrying concealed, this show is for you. Again, every Saturday at 2 p.m. we'll be here exploring various topics related to concealed carry in Nevada and in general. Today's topic is going to be very controversial. Constitutional carry. Currently, 25 states allow citizens to carry a concealed weapon without a permit. And Nevada is not one of those states, and the governor has indicated that he does not support it for Nevada. Now, in Nevada, you need to take an 8-hour course to get a permit to carry a concealed weapon. To buy a gun, you don't need anything. You just need to pass a federal background check, right? Constitutional carry basically means that if you qualify to legally buy a handgun, you can automatically carry that handgun without a permit. So, before I get into my position on constitutional carry, I wanted to get a brainless liberal's opinion on the subject. So, Mel, what are your thoughts on constitutional carry?
I'm opposed to it.
I love how you just glazed over.
Well, I glazed over. Well, I'm opposed to it because it does not seem like it's a good idea.
Well, okay, but why isn't it a good idea?
Well, one thing, in other words, you're saying without training, without qualification, that a person should be able to have a gun just because they can legally buy it. That makes no sense, does it?
I don't know. Is there any other constitutional right that you have to apply for in order to get? What if women had to apply for a permit to vote? I mean, that's another constitutional right. Why is this one different that you have to apply and qualify for it?
Because of the danger. I don't think women voting is dangerous unless you believe it is.
Not unless you've been with some types of.
Well,
everybody has a crazy ex, right? Yeah. I'm taking away your right to vote. I'm pulling your permit.
Yeah, well, that's another. Don't go there.
No, I'm not.
That's not what we're talking about today, right?
But what's the danger in it? If somebody already has the ability to qualify to buy a handgun, then isn't it just redundant to have them go through? Because what we usually tell people, when they're going to get a permit, if you qualify to buy a handgun, then pretty good chance you're going to qualify for a permit.
But then you say that you don't need to qualify to buy a handgun.
No, you don't.
Well, that's the point. Wait, you're talking about buying a handgun, not doing a CCW class, not doing any kind of training, and be able to have a gun?
Well,
carry it?
No, you can have a gun now without any kind of permit.
Well, in your house. Remember you said that's the right of...
Well, there's a couple of things that change the dynamics.
Yes.
And that is depending on what state you live in. But let's just say in general, right? You can carry a firearm open carry in Nevada, or what I like to call open scary.
Open scary.
Open scary. Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, constitutional carry would mean that you can carry it without a permit, that you have the same qualifications for concealed carry as you do for purchasing a handgun.
Well, we could say again, that's probably not a very good idea, isn't that?
Well, I don't know. That's your position,
opinion,
but I can tell you that the Second Amendment community is very, very unwavering in this question, which is why 25 states have pushed hard enough to get it past constitutional carry. Now, they still offer permits in those states. But you have a permit by default. If you can legally own that handgun, you can carry it concealed. But what you lose is reciprocity, meaning you have constitutional carry by default, And then when you go outside of your home state, then you no longer have any reciprocity. No other states are going to recognize your constitutional carry, in Arizona or Utah or wherever else that is. So there's still a benefit to getting a permit. Number one, you can buy handguns and guns without a background check. That's one of them. And then reciprocity, or enables you to pick up those other states that are honored by that particular state. So, I mean, the other thing is that people, I think probably the strongest argument for constitutional carry is that if you're getting a firearm for personal defense, then a concept we talk about in our CCW classes all the time is imminent danger, right?
Yes.
So people shouldn't have to wait 120 days to get a permit to protect themselves, especially if they're a victim of violent crime or an abuse. 120 days is pretty outlandishly unreasonable.
That's correct. Yeah, 120
right.
days is a long time.
So constitutional carry would solve that problem, right? It's definitely one of the issues, right?
Yes.
So I understand the objection about training and things like that, but let's look at a valuation of where concealed carriers are in the food chain, right? To just really quantify it, because the issue is really with guns and people carrying them is public trust, right?
Yes.
Is the public comfortable with an individual who's openly carrying a gun or concealed carrying? It's so on the top end of the spectrum, we have law enforcement. And how do we quantify their value? Is they got about 550 hours of training for their academy. And the public, we could say, for the most part, trusts law enforcement to carry a gun around. Nobody's freaking out over a cop having a gun on his hip, right? He's
right.
open carrying. Then step down one notch, you have armed security, which to qualify is 40 hours, right, in Nevada. Now, how many people in the public trust that guy? The one standing at the bus stop waiting for the bus to take him to and from work in his armed uniform? How many people have a lot of faith in that guy for public protection? Not very many, right? We don't have enough respect for security yet because they need to step it up, but that's another subject. Then below that is concealed carriers. They have, in Nevada, 8 hours of training. Not very much, but below the guy at the bus stop. Then you have below that unarmed security, 0 hours of training, and then below that, gun owners, 0 hours of training. So on the bottom end of it, no wonder the public doesn't have any trust in gun owners carrying guns around, because there's nothing to quantify. Why should we trust you? And when you're dealing with a concealed carrier, he still doesn't have. This is what people get upset about when everybody's, well, I have a background check that I pass every day. As a concealed carrier, they digitally check your background daily, right? And concealed carriers have this idea that because they pass that FBI background check, because they have a clean record, because they have some training, right, and then maybe some more beyond that, but there's no way to quantify how many classes, concealed carriers as a whole have taken. They get butthurt when society doesn't welcome them into their businesses and they put up signs and things like that. So we're going to get into this a little bit more, but before we go to a break, I want to tell you about the Range 702. There's a lot of ranges in town that I've been to since I've been in Vegas, which is about 28, 29 years. I could tell you, and I'll tell you a few stories about them and Chris Chansky later. Absolute best range in Vegas. And for me to say that about somebody in Vegas, that's a big deal, because I'm constantly at odds ends with a lot of the people in the industry. But the Range 702 is really an awesome place to go, especially what makes that place really great is Chris Chansky. She is awesome and is not condescending like some ranges have a tendency to be. Right, but very, very, very good folks. So if you guys give it a moment and go to the range702.com, they're open 7 days a week. They do cater to locals. They cater also to tourists. They have great range facilities. I think they go out to 25 yards. They also have a large selection of handguns, and they do CCW classes there as well. So when we get back, we're going to pick up this discussion about constitutional carry. This is the Double Tap Show with the Calling Ambulance Guy and Nephi Khaliki. All right, we are back. This is the Double Tap Show. I am Nephi Khaliki, joined live with the Calling Ambulance Guy, Mel. Now, some people, for years, Mel, the video that we did, we're going to talk about that for a little bit before we get back to the subject of constitutional carry. We did a video for self-defense. For self-defense for seniors.
Don't forget for seniors.
For seniors, yes. Those of you, people can't tell, Mel, that you're aged, right? It's because you're short. Nobody can tell how old you are by age. But we did a video where one of our guys, one of our fighters for Las Vegas Gunfights, Cody Ham, was robbing you at your car. And it's a routine we did where, call an ambulance, but not for me. It since went viral all over the world. It's been a meme. It's been made into animations and cartoons and Lego stop-motion animation. Call an ambulance, but not for me is 23 awards that I can count so far. Well over 100 million views. They're selling T-shirts on Amazon and not paying us for them, clearly. But for years, several years since it came out, I think we did it in 18 or 17, something like that, people always wonder who's the Call an Ambulance Guy, right? And now you're on the radio.
I'm on the radio. So people still can't see me, though.
Well, they can't see. They can't see you, but
me.
they hear, the Call an Ambulance Guy. So look the video up. It's hilarious. It's just gone everywhere.
Yes.
But, Mel, you and I have known each other for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And those of you that, don't know Mel is, how do we say this, Mel?
Well,
how do I describe
watch how you
you?
say it.
How do I describe you? Mel, look, I'm not a tall guy.
No.
Right? But Mel is short. Right? He's a white-haired gentleman. I say gentleman, right? He's about, 5 foot tall?
5'2".
5'2".
Yeah.
Right? He's so short. He's so short, you could tell a Jew joke and it'd go right over his head.
That was terrible, too. Okay.
Does it not?
Well, that's typical Nephi.
Typical Nephi.
Typical Nephi.
I know.
But I'm used to it because we said, I've known you, my heavens, it's
since
12
11
years?
Or 12, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that long.
Should I say some of the best days of my life or some of the worst?
Yeah.
We'll debate that later.
We just wanted to cover that so people understand when you say Call an Ambulance Guy that people have been looking all over the world for you, right? Because you're famous.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well,
famous. People recognize you in car dealerships like, wait a minute. You're the Call an Ambulance Guy.
That has happened to me,
yes. Recognized at ball games. And
when I went to the Eagles Cardinals game.
Yes. So back to the subject of constitutional carry, right? Because I'm about to shock some people with what we're about to talk about here in a minute, right? I understand your views on the subject they're not unreasonable, right? But then you have these constitutional Second Amendment purists that understand that they don't want to give an inch because they'll take a mile. Right? That's typically how it is. So gun control is a python, right? It only gets tighter. It only contracts. And so I started to get very suspicious. And those of you out there listening, get a pen and get ready if you want to call in. I'm going to give the number out in a minute, but grab a pen. Because in the third segment, we're going to open up the phones a little bit for people to call in and comment. But I want to give this perspective on this because I'm a strategist, right? A political chess player. I do the same with marketing, and that's just how I think in strategies. And like question 1 in Nevada, that was the universal background check. And back then, our sheriff, Lombardo, said, well, I helped get rid of blue cards. And they got rid of gun registrations. And I thought, no. I don't trust this. What are they up to? Right? Because I don't trust them, because I know that snake only contracts. That's it. So what was behind it? Getting rid of blue cards was question 1, universal background check. So what it wasn't getting rid of it. It was getting out of the way of something worse. Right? So that was my first issue, is like I didn't trust it. Whenever you say you're going to relax on some of the laws on guns, it's just not something that I trust. And so we have to take our feelings out of how we feel about constitutional carry, right? Because the feeling is you're going to screw us, so we don't want to give up an inch, right? That's how 2A supporters are, at least on the purest side of that, right? The trap, and I believe that constitutional carry is a trap. I'm just going to say that right now. That's my position. I'm going to explain why it's a trap, but don't look at it emotionally. Look at this strategically. What are they up to, right? The same thing happened when the Supreme Court ruled and clarified that every citizen has a right to carry a firearm outside their home for personal protection. That sounds like a massive victory. But on the other side of it, but we have the right to regulate it. Right? Okay, there's the snake again, constricting. Right? And so while this ruling made every state a de facto shall issue state, we saw what New York and California did with that right to regulate clause, right? Mm-hmm. They literally cornered people with a list of prohibited places you can't carry, to the point you need to do hopscotch when you leave your house. Otherwise, you're going to be a criminal. So instead of looking at constitutional carry emotionally, I want to look at it strategically. Right? Fair?
Yes.
Okay, so to do that, first we need to look at where we are in this fight. Right? Gun owners as a segment of society, that's a term that has successfully been demonized in this country. Right? You can no longer use being a gun owner as a line to get laid at a bar. Right? It just doesn't work anymore. She's going to call the cops on you. Right? The perception of gun owners has been ruined by a massive smear campaign by the mainstream media and the liberal left, just like they smeared the name of Christians. Right? And why did they do that? To influence votes and policymaking. Right? They know they have to destroy the image of guns before people will not just allow them to be taken, but demand that they be taken. So I think you'd agree, gun owners, it's kind of a bad word.
Virtually,
right?
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
a bad word. Their reputation has been destroyed. And so that brings us to the point of asking ourselves, do we want to run the risk of allowing concealed carry permit holders to downgrade themselves back down to the level of a gun owner? That's literally like buying stock in a car company that just had 30,000 people die in their cars, right? The name of gun owners been ruined, and concealed carriers through constitutional carry are going to put themselves back down at the same level as a gun owner, meaning zero training required in order to obtain the ability to carry concealed. Right?
Yes, which is, I say, wrong.
Well, yes, but so basically I don't support it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't support it anymore. But the reasons that I agree with you, or the reasons that I agree with Lombardo, right, who says he's not going to put it in Nevada, it's not the same reasons, right? It's because I'm thinking long game. I'm thinking about their strategies over the years, because remember, governments, they think generationally, and we think about life in terms of our birth and our death, right? But they're thinking about issues beyond our death, right? And was the name of gun owners ever really that great? I mean, think about it. There's zero training required to own a gun. Right? There's a big difference with concealed carriers because we undergo a minimum of 8 hours of training to get that permit. We go through daily backgrounds, and we subject ourselves to all the regulations gun grabbers are trying to make law. voluntarily. That makes us very hard to attack politically because we're one of the cleanest demographics in the country, right? Do we really want to jump back in the mud with gun owners where we become easier to attack because we are now untrained fools with guns and anger issues, right? That's what we would do under a constitutional carry state. In all of the country, if we're all constitutional carry, now we're no better than gun owners. Now we're gun owners again. And we already saw how successful they were at destroying that. Concealed carriers are the final frontier for gun rights in this country. Because the gun owners, they're dead, right? They're all laying in the field, and the gun grabbers are running up to them, putting bullets in their head, finishing them off, figuratively speaking. Figuratively speaking, right? So we want to go constitutional carry to where now we have the same profile and public perception. We have a good image now as concealed carriers. We're very difficult to go after. I saw a recent statistic that law enforcement has a greater odds of being or committing a violent crime than a concealed carrier. It's really, for that reason, I have to say I don't support constitutional carry anymore. I think it's a trap that appeals to our sentiment while setting us up for a lethal blow. Now, that being said, Mel, yes, what I do support is a temporary CCW permit, which is already on the books in Nevada. Look up the statute. It's always been there since 95, a temporary concealed weapons permit. The sheriff has the authority to issue them. You think that would have come in handy during COVID? Or it might come in handy for a woman that's just been like assaulted with a knife or raped to get a temporary permit while they wait for the permanent one. So it still has the same effect as constitutional carry because you could say, you know what, it's time. You go in, they do a background check like that. Give you a temporary CCW permit while you go through some training and wait for your permanent permit to come in. That's the best of both worlds. If we were going to push for something, I wouldn't be pushing for constitutional carry and laissez-faire and all this. Just do it. Because I could tell you, as the number one CCW instructor program in Nevada, vegasccw.com, that is a big concern for us, the level of training that somebody has. Right? I feel like most CCW students are like the green sea turtle, where 1 in 1,000 actually survive to adulthood after hatching. Right? But flipping the script on that, training is important. That's not for constitutional carry. Kind of does, I agree with you, thumbs its nose at the idea of training. It's almost suggesting it's not important. Right? Well, it is. Because that violent criminal, if he has experience and no training, that trumps your no training and no experience. Right?
Yes. Well, but a violent criminal would not be able to constitutional carry.
He does now. Criminals have more freedoms than law-abiding citizens.
But remember, because he's not buying a gun legally.
That's right. But it doesn't change
he's going to have
the
a
fact
gun.
that it's out there. Right? And why are people so worried about the people that go through background checks and do all these things to separate themselves? And criminals enjoy the most freedom in this country.
Because they don't follow the laws.
Right.
They're not going to worry about that. I'm sure that how many criminals do you have come to your CCW class?
That's kind of, it's funny you ask. Because a lot of the courts send a lot of students for weapons violations to my class.
Oh, well, weapons.
Yeah, like they've got a violation for carrying concealed permit,
because they never were trained
properly. Negligently discharged one in the street, or the courts are sending them to my class.
Which makes sense again.
Yeah, so we're actually, I can't talk about it yet, but we're working on something with a 3-letter agency to create alternative sentencing for weapons violators. Right, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole. Yeah, it's
that's a whole nother subject.
Yes, let's
not. But as far as constitutional carry, now I know I'm committing heresy to the gun community,
yes.
But it doesn't matter. They're all mad at me anyway, right? I don't care. This is logical. right? To suggest, oh yeah, they're backing down off the law. Don't believe it for a second. Don't believe it for a second that they're backing away to, well, you know what? They're right. Let's give them a little more of those freedoms back. No, got something up their dirty little sleeves. Guarantee it. Mark my words. I was ecstatic over the Supreme Court ruling because I said, you know what? That'll set them back 100 years in gun control. No. Right behind that, they're talking about, well, they just had a bunch of restrictions come out on braces for AR pistols, and I'm dealing with something with simunition right now. They're trying to reclassify simunition, which watch us flip that one around, right? Simunition, those of you that don't know, when we run the full contact gunfight stuff, we use simunition, which is a non-lethal restricted use training ammo made by one of the largest military contractors in the world, General Dynamics, which I've had a relationship with since 2014. The ATF is messing with them. So are we going to go to the phones here in a minute? I'm going to put the number out here. All right, it's area code 702, so grab your pen. Area code 702. Not you, Mel. Put the pen down.
Well, I can't call in.
257-5396. And before we go to this break again, I want to tell you something about Range 702. When I bought my private range to do private qualifications, I had one gun range that was near my office ban me from going there because I'm now competition. And this is the Mormon guy, right? And then Chris Chansky from Range 702, which is not a religious person, but a good person, she brought me 1,250 rounds of ammo and said, good luck with your new venture, right? And because of that, I've been extremely loyal to Chris and the team over at the Range 702. It has just been a pleasure. And they're super, super busy, but they're awesome people over at Range 702. So I do want to give my personal recommendation for people. Not all ranges are the same, and I think most of you know that a lot of them, they can be some condescending know-it-alls and not really attentive to people. So it's nice to have somebody that understands customer service, that understands relationship building, and understands what people really need, right? They come there to get information about how to protect themselves, not to be sold something above and beyond all that. So again, the Range 702, awesome local resource for gun owners and for range time. So we'll be back right after the break. We're going to get to some calls, and we'll be right back. You gotta know when to draw down, when to call the law down, know when to move and know when to shoot. You better move for cover in the middle of a gunfight. There's no time. All right, we are back. It's Nephi Khaliki with the Double Tap Show and the Call It Ambulance guy, Mel.
Oh, yeah. Again, right?
All right, Mel, we've
Yes.
got someone on hold here, Dan. We're going to bring on to the show. Dan, welcome to the Double Tap Show.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Why is it that when you drive a vehicle, you have to re-register your vehicle, you have to be trained on how to drive a car with an instructor, they have to make sure that you have eyesight, that your health is good, but yet when it comes to guns, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I don't disagree with you. As somebody who does, I've trained over 22,000 people in this city, and that is one of the things that's most difficult for me to encourage people to get more training. Even after people get a driver's license, I still recommend continuing education and to get more experience. So I don't disagree with you. What I don't want to see is the government cram it down people's throats. I think we've got to find a way for people to do it because it makes sense to do it and not because they're being forced.
don't you think it makes sense for an 18-year-old, if he wants to walk into a gun store and buy an AR-15, to be trained on how to use it before he can purchase it?
Of course it
Don't
makes
you think
sense.
that makes sense?
I think
Well, why won't we do it then?
Well, do you have kids at that age group?
I do not. But whether I have kids or not, I mean, I think you should be trained on how to use a weapon before
and that's
you
the
buy it.
parents'
And
responsibility. Where do parents come in to this? I mean, if it's my kid, you're damn right. I've been training him since he was old enough to hold one.
And that's you, and I appreciate that. But you're telling me you trust all parents to do the right thing?
No, I trust few parents. I trust few parents.
I mean, look at the mass shooters out there. I mean, usually they have parents that are clueless. And you're not going to like what I have to say here,
okay.
But I think that we have an infatuation and an obsession in this country with guns. I think there are too many guns out there. There are certainly too many illegal guns out there, and nobody seems to have any solutions except for let's harden our schools and let's arm our kindergarten teachers. And more guns, more guns. And I think it's absurd and it's ridiculous.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you, Dan. I think what we are doing is not working very well. But I can tell you that the solution involves more in the lines of education and training and preparation than it does removing guns. Because no matter what we do, the bad guys are going to get the guns. They're going to find them through stealing, or they're going to take them from cops. There's all kinds of ways for them to get them, and that doesn't mean that people need to be defenseless. But I agree, there's an obsession with the guns, and you're not going to hear that from me. I will call the gun industry out where I think they need to be called out, and I'll tell you they sell a lot of false confidence to people, a lot of it. Somebody will go through and say, you know what, I'm worried about my personal safety. And the gun industry says, get a gun. Like, you're skipping some steps, right? So, Dan, I appreciate your call, brother. I hope you continue to listen, because this is something that we are going to address. Look, I'm not here to support the gun industry or to speak against it. I'm here to speak truth. That's it. Right? There are things that we can learn from it. I'm not here just to espouse the same old dry 2A arguments. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. We're way past that, folks. Because while we're screaming, don't steal my TV, the criminals are running out the back of your house with your TV. And that's not solving the problem. Right? I don't agree that guns are for every individual who fears for their life. I think that it is a tool, and one of many tools that people should have in their possession, right? But the number one tool that you need, and what we teach on the just on the Double Tap show, but at Vegas CCW, where we do classes 4 days a week, right? By the way, if you want to join me personally, that's where you go, and we can have this conversation for 8 hours, right, at vegasccw.com. That's our classroom, right? So I appreciate that perspective. I'm not here to pat the gun industry on the back and say, you've done a great job, everything you do is right. We've got Mike on the line. Mike, welcome to the Double Tap Show, Mike.
Hey, constitutionally carrying a gun is a right. Driving is not a right. It's an earned privilege. So there's a big difference between why you'd want to constantly keep training somebody with driving a vehicle and checking their health and their eyesight and stuff like that. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And as far as constitutional carry, I think I want to be able to carry as I'm traveling through the United States without having to be arrested because what's lawful in one state is not lawful in another. And I think the constitutional carry situation would eliminate the misuse of various laws to restrict my gun rights.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a simple issue, right? Because you have on one side of it, and I think the fact that guns is political in the first place is baffling to me, right? Because Democrats and Republicans, they both want the same thing. At the end of the day, they want to be left alone. They want to be free from being assaulted. They want to be free from someone breaking into their house and raping them in the middle of the night, although that might be some liberals' fantasies. But still, we want the same thing. So where's the disconnect? And I think it's that people who aren't comfortable with violence in general, they're going to say, well, let's just take them down to our level, right? Instead of, but we realize, and like you said, Mike, that's the rub, right? When the criminals don't care about any of the rules, and all the ones that get restricted and their hands tied are the people who do it right. Right?
Or want to do it right, yeah.
Or want to do it right. And so, yes, education is important. Training is important. Look, if it was up to me, I wish I had it. 6 months I'd love to spend with each student before they start comfortably and confidently carrying that gun for self-defense. Because most people, I don't feel like, are going to do very well in that situation. Right? So it's a really tough thing to say. So, Mike, I appreciate you calling. I hope you continue to listen. You're going to get it straight from us here on the Double Tap Show. And I want to remind our listeners that, and those of you that don't know me from the many, many times I've been in the media or in the middle of some controversy or whatever is going on, there's a reason for it, because the gun industry would say to me, you're making it difficult for us to have a meaningful conversation with the people we're trying to get to see things our way. And I would say to those people, they don't care. You're talking about reasoning with somebody as if they're going to change? I don't think so. They're not going to change. And I'm not going to change either. I'm going to keep telling the truth. I'm going to keep it real, and we're going to keep coming back every Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m., Again, I want to remind you, Range 702, awesome folks over there. Get down there, set up some range time. They've got, I think, $15 for lane time. They've got good, competent staff. They've got a lot of good-looking girls over there, if you know what I mean, right? They are extremely awesome people over there. Chris Chansky done an amazing job at really building a successful business, and just want to say thanks for tuning in, folks. We will be back next Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. on the Double Tap Show.